Just letting our IT folks know. 1 second.
Of course.
Is my flag the opposite of all of yours? Or is it just what I'm looking at?
Okay, Chair, we're live now.
Great. Thank you very much. We are calling to order our Parks and Community Services Commission meeting. The time is 6:30 p.m. on May 13th, 2001. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll go ahead and start that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Liz, can we please have a roll call?
Yes, Chair. Honorary Commissioner Munn. Commissioner Griggs.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Cervente.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Margalotti.
Here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Einberger
Here.
and Chair Memrell.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I understand that Honorary Commissioner Moon is absent with cause. So can we please have a motion to excuse her attendance today?
I motion to excuse Honorary Commissioner Moon from today's meeting.
And I second it.
Okay. Any opposition? Hey, seeing no opposition, the motion passes and Honorary Commissioner Moon is excused from today's meeting. Okay. Liz, do we have any public comments, either emails or folks that have called in?
Not at this time, Chair.
Thank you much. Seeing no public comment, we will move on to commissioner comments. Let's see, Commissioner Griggs.
Thank you, Chair Memrell. Good evening, everyone. I have no comments at this time. I am looking forward to tonight's agenda. That's my only
Wonderful
comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Cervente.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Just to remind everyone that this Saturday is the Happy Solidarity Walk. I'm sure Commissioner Mamaro is going to give you more info about that. But we've been pushing it on the middle school social media and send it to parents so that we have as much support as possible. Also, ACMS Open House is on May 18th at 5 p.m. It's going to be virtual, and the Zoom link for the webinar will be in our Facebook page. And on May 25th, we'll have the ACMS African American Coalition Town Hall at 6:30 p.m. Also, the Zoom link will be on our website and Facebook page. And let's see. Thank you. And last day of school is the 16th for the middle school. I heard someone else said the 15th, but for the middle school is on the 16th. So for everyone that is listening, beware. There's going to be more kids out there in the streets playing. So drive safely. And that's about it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Cervente. Commissioner Margalotti.
Yep, just a couple of save the dates for American Canyon Parks Foundation. If you haven't noticed, out at Shenandoah Park, There's a story walk that is in the process of being installed that will be there for families to enjoy and walk and view the stories as they go. So official kickoff for that will be June 18th. And it'll be a kickoff for the story walk and then the summer park and play series. And then also save the date for Night at the Ruins. It's going to be, it's in process of being planned, and depending on how it's going to look with COVID restrictions and such, and what modifications might need to be in place, but September 18th. And look for more information to come out about that soon. So.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Commissioner Margolotti. Vice Chair Einberger.
Yes, thank you. Just a reminder that the next bingo game that Serapimus does with the city is next Thursday at 7. And also just want to let people know or remind people that the library book sale is this Saturday from 10 until 5 out in front of the library. Lots of books. They're bringing out everything. So, and it's all cheap. They're really wanting to start to get rid of everything and kind of start over. So great bargains.
Great. Thank you. I kind of noticed with everyone's comments that these are all little glimpses of us getting back to normal, which is really nice to hear. My comments are that the California Parks and Recreation Commissioners and Board members had a session on commissioner rules and responsibilities. I believe it was late last month, and I just wanted to let my fellow commissioners know that the Zoom video of that session is open for viewing until May 28th, if you're interested in seeing it and if you couldn't attend that session. Second announcement, and yes, as Commissioner Cervente mentioned, see if I can get it out there. Oh boy. Okay. So yes, there is an Asian Solidarity rally this upcoming Saturday. Yeah, this Saturday, 2 days, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Shenandoah Park. There are quite a few sponsors, the Philatmouth Community of American Canyon, our city council, and the city, all to show support and solidarity with our Asian American community due to the rise in anti-Asian hate crime. So the event is 2 hours. If you're able to bring a "We Love Everyone in American Canyon" lawn sign, please bring it. It's kind of that's kind of the theme for the day. There'll be speakers, city council, other dignitaries. So come on out if you're able to show your support. Okay, next part is agenda changes. Are there any changes to the order of our agenda, or do any commissioners want to request discussion of a consent item?
Chair, I would actually, let me defer to Alana here for a quick sec. Have you heard from Powell? Okay, so we'd like to ask that we continue our presentation item as the recipient hasn't made it onto our meeting yet, and there seems to be an issue with his attendance for tonight.
Gotcha. That's item. Okay, that's item A1.
A1, yes.
Okay.
So we'd like to continue that to our June meeting, if we could, please.
So do we need the motion?
Okay.
Yes, please.
Motion to
Okay.
move.
Can we have a
Oh. Do you want a
go
motion?
for it, Commissioner? No. Yeah, I really can't do it.
Okay, that's why I was, motion to move item A1 to our PCS June 2021 meeting.
And I second it.
Okay. Any objections to the motion? Okay, seeing no objections, the motion passes. Okay, and while we are at agenda changes, this is not an agenda change, but as chair, I wanted to make a point of order, and it affects the agenda generally with regard to time management. After we talk about an agenda item, I will open the floor to questions and clarifications, and that's going to be a slight change. I'm not going to call each commissioner individually. So, at that point, please feel free to unmute and ask your question, or while we're on Zoom, go to Zoom and raise your hand, and I'll call on you. I'll recognize you in the order that I see you. And once again, this is for time management. Of course, we encourage questions, and all of us commissioners are very insightful. But this is just it's a way to also not feel compelled to ask a question or make a comment. So that's just the way I'm going to conduct the meetings, and for time management purposes. Okay, we're moving on. We have moved item A1. So our next order of business is item B1. Receive presentation and conduct workshop from 100% Inc. on the beneficiary of services.
Chair, I'll do a quick overview, and then I will turn over to our project manager, Farrell Bueller, here in a second, who will actually walk you through this workshop. We do expect that it'll be 30 to 45 minutes, or maybe a little bit longer than that. But we have been keeping you updated that we've been working on, staff has been, a cost recovery study for our departments and all of our services and fees that we're charging. And earlier this year, we came across a wonderful opportunity from one of our neighbors. Napa was engaging in a Bay Area cohort where 110% was walking them through a cost recovery process that is becoming the industry standard. And so we were given the opportunity to jump on board this Bay Area cohort, and we have leapt at it. And we've been working with Farrell and her team now for the last, I guess it's been 3 months almost now. And we're nearing the end. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And this same workshop that you are going through tonight, we went through as staff last week. And this is to determine for our programs and services kind of broadly where the benefit of those programs fall, and then trying to eventually assign an appropriate cost recovery expectation. So Farrell will go into much more depth and detail about the project. We're generally set to end here in the next 30 days, maybe a little bit more than that, but we're getting close to the end. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Farrell, who will walk you through our Beneficiary of Services workshop.
Great. Thank you, Creighton, and good evening, commissioners. As Creighton said, I'm Farrell Bueller. I'm actually here in Erie, Colorado, and I work for 110%, who basically what we do is cost recovery and help parks and recreation departments around the nation stabilize from a financial their impact, as well as start to understand and identify how each community individually wants to spend their finite resources, their taxpayer dollars. So that's what we do. Prior to joining 110% full-time in January, I'll just tell you I was in local government for 20 years, most recently as the Parks and Recreation Director here in Erie, Colorado, and then I spent 3 years as the Deputy Town Administrator. So I'm happy to be back working solely with Parks and Recreation professionals. They are my favorite departments in local government. As Creighton mentioned, I'm going to walk you through tonight a little bit about what this is, some of the components that go into building a really stable financial plan. And then as Creighton mentioned, you're actually going to be ranking categories that you believe are the values of American Canyon. And so you'll be helping select how you want to spend your taxpayer dollars, your subsidy dollars into the future. So this is the SMART approach to cost recovery. I'm guessing you can see my screen, but if someone would just give me a thumbs up okay, thank you. Okay. All right, as Creighton mentioned, American Canyon, or you all are participating in the Bay Area cohort. We designed these cohorts for parks and recreation agencies that are in a like area, as well as somewhat of a like size, in that between that $2 to $10 million operating budget, we consider a like size. We know that creates some collegiality. We know these organizations talk and help share information. Now they're sharing accurate information, comparing apples to apples, and really working through some pieces. This is the cohort that you all are part of. This is our team. I'm down there laughing on this bottom, but Jamie Sabak is next to me. She actually started 110% about 10 years ago. And then up top are our partner staff. They work in Montreal, Canada, and they're part of the A Million team. And that's the team that actually does all of the data. So when Creighton and his team send in all the costs, direct, indirect, all of their revenues, that team is capturing it in a very specific, one-of-a-kind cost recovery tool that you will have all of the results for, like he said, in about a month. Here's what we're going to go through tonight over the next 30 to 45 minutes or so. All right, Parks and Rec-onomics is what we call this. Basically, again, it's how Parks and Recreation agencies are managing their finite resources. We know that additional dollars are not being given to Parks and Recreation. We know from the pandemic, it's shed a huge light just in financial resources to municipalities, cities, businesses, right, across the globe. So our first question that we ask, it's somewhat rhetorical, but it's, are you smart about managing your money? And why we ask it is, we want you to think about, are you intentional about how it's being spent, about your finite taxpayer dollars? Are you spending it how you desire your agency to? Are you saving it for things that you desire to do for your agency? I just heard you all list off some really awesome opportunities coming up for your community members. And so those types of activities are exactly what we're talking about. I want to just briefly describe what cost recovery is and isn't. Cost recovery is basically fiscal management. It's being fiscally responsible. What cost recovery isn't is it's not about pricing people out of being able to participate. It isn't about getting everything to 100%. In its truest definition and truest form, it just means it's recovering or offsetting the cost of delivering a service. On the flip side is subsidy. And we know that subsidy is critically important. Parks and Recreation departments specifically will always have some level of subsidy for programs that they provide. And in its truest form and definition is it's a benefit given by the government to remove some type of burden. It's considered to be in the overall interest of the public good, given to create social good or economic policy. And a little bit of context for you, this will be the shortest history lesson ever. This is Boston Commons. So in the 1600s, that's when our profession was born. And it was born on the backbone, right? And the spine of us is open spaces and public spaces. The idea was that all people could participate. You didn't see yoga classes, right? You didn't see lots of large recreation centers, activities like that. It was a place for people to come and gather and self-participate. Fast forward a lot. In the 80s, what we started to see was this idea that parks and recreation agencies should have something for everyone. What this did is it challenged us to be able to financially support everything that's been created. And now we have to start to ask ourselves some of the realities of, is it reasonable for us to continue in the same manner? If the dynamic is different, maybe we're not the only game in town providing activities. Maybe we can be part of the puzzle, but we don't have to solve all of it ourselves. I'm going to show you a couple of studies before I bring you right back home to California and American Canyon, but a couple of studies that have recently been done are by Dr. Andy Moen from Penn State University. This one was done in 2014 and 2015 to show a balance sheet, right? It just started to demonstrate how our expenditures in Parks and Recreation as a whole across the globe, across the United States, my apologies, we're growing at a rate much greater than our revenues. So we like to think about this a little bit like if this was your own checkbook and you were overspending, you know, and you weren't recouping those dollars, would you keep doing and living the same way that you were previously? One of the studies that he did in 2017 is he was trying to test a hypothesis of if Parks and Recreation is really considered essential. So the same professor, Dr. Andy Moen, did over 800 interviews with people in local government and asked them if they use their local Parks and Recreation areas. And you can see that 95% of them personally used it, and 99% indicated that it did benefit the community. Then we go down to the bottom section here where it says, well, 6 of the 7 agree that Parks and Recreation was extremely important. They used those facilities, they believed in it, and it was worth the tax dollars well spent. They also indicated that Parks and Recreation was likely to be hit with some of the largest funding cuts when a city or town saw budgetary pressure because it didn't meet the one thing that was their main concern, and that was attracting and retaining local businesses. So interesting, this was done in 2017, right? Several years before what we've experienced in 2020. Then there was his whole article around the Great Recession and the profound impacts on Parks and Recreation. We started to take some of this information from the National Parks and Recreation Association, and there's several articles that start to indicate just what's happening with Parks and Recreation funding. This graph that I want to share with you starts to describe what happens if we don't hit pause and really look at how we're spending those dollars. And what you can see here is total expenses for Parks and Recreation, $35.5 billion. When you look at operating, I'm going to go to the percentage. 66.2% was in operating and 33.8% spent on capital. And capital items are the things that we need to replace: a recreation center, a playground, trails, right, facilities, things such as those. When we look at 2008, we start to see that our operating budgets are increasing and our capital budgets are decreasing. Again, we see this in 2013, capital budgets of taking care of what we have is decreased to 20%. And in 2021, we're yet to see it, but you know, we can defer infrastructure some, but when operating isn't decreasing and we continue to try to offer all the services to the community, it's just not sustainable. We have to be able to hit pause and pour back into our own systems so that we can take care of our infrastructure. 2 other slides that I just wanted to share with you from the national scope. You can see here, this is from 2020, so very recent from the National Parks and Recreation Association. Some of the reductions that were captured specifically affecting Parks and Recreation agencies. And then this one, the state and local government survey revealed that 68% of local governments that responded will see moderate, significant, or major financial adjustments being needed due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. And so this was just from January. When we do this work with agencies, anytime we start with a new organization, we want to make sure that people realize if they've already made some efforts towards financial discipline and cost recovery, we capture those. So sometimes we're working with agencies that already have put some work towards this effort and have had conversations. And sometimes we're working with organizations where this is a brand new topic. We wanted to show you this because this is Kevin Mitchell. He's in Grapevine, Texas, and we have been working with Grapevine, Texas. We continue to work with Grapevine, Texas, and he believes that because of the efforts that they've made over several years, they've been able to stay financially healthy. Now, it's not, it would be silly of me to say that in a bubble, it's just because of one thing where, you know, we don't have the resources to take care of everything. We know that there's a lot of components affecting, you know, municipal funding sources, municipal government. So there's economic uncertainty, increasing disparities. Lots of people have different expectations and ideas of what they want local government or specifically parks and recreation agencies to provide. Having reserves to be able to pour back into your infrastructure and take care of things creates that maintenance backlog, as well as struggling competitors. So we know that, you know, maybe there's a small business down the street and maybe they offer dance classes. Our hope is that we help encourage, right, that those dance classes stay, because those are the exact same businesses that help pour back into some of the funding base at times for our own parks and recreation agencies. So we don't want to see people going out of business or competitors going out of business. Why we do this work is we believe that when reality and your policy start to come together, like it's magic. It's not always easy. There's a lot of hard conversations. I know we appreciate immensely the conversations that Creighton has had with Jamie and myself, really describing the work that you do at American Canyon, really describing some of the expectations. You'll see that in your service categories. It is unique. And so the reality and the policy is unique to each agency, no matter if you're part of a cohort or not. And what we'd like to do is work with you to start bring together those two components so that you can have a really strong system moving forward. And I'd be remiss if I didn't show this slide. We know that this is a balancing act. Lots of us in Parks and Recreation go into it kind of for the social service heart, right? The desire to serve people, the desire to serve our communities, kind of that servant's heart style. So balancing that at times with, you know, kind of data, numbers, this brain, this really solid piece of financial acumen, it is a balancing act. We want to take care of our people, and to do that, we have to make great decisions that are sometimes really difficult. So before we get into the exercise that you're going to do tonight, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how some of the cost recovery, how financial planning at times has gone in Parks and Recreation up to this point. At times, this is what we've seen, and this is what a lot of us were taught maybe, I don't know, in the 90s, early 2000s, that you picked a category like sports, aquatics, older adults, and you assigned a cost recovery percentage to it. Although that wasn't a terrible start, the reality is American Canyon is not like Austin, Texas, right? Or Erie, Colorado is definitely not like, you know, Breck in Louisiana. So it didn't really work because we weren't working with numbers from real agencies, right? It was just a starting place, but it was arbitrary. What your staff have been working with, what Creighton and his team have been working with, is what we call this three-legged stool. And there's three pieces to it: service categories, beneficiary of service, and cost of service. And they stabilize and they all help you reach a tax investment revenue or enhancement philosophy. So this is what essentially they'll be making and you'll be working with us on tonight. The first leg of that stool is service categories. What service categories are is a way to look at every single program, class, event, workshop, service that you offer to the community. And you can see here, there's a youth sport program, there's an older adult senior program, and there's a dance program. in the old pricing philosophy, in the old cost recovery philosophy, right, we would have just assigned a percent to them. Maybe T-ball because there's lots of kids that play, and older adults because they're on fixed incomes, they pay less. And then the little girl in the dance class, well, not very many people dance, so we'll just raise that one. That's kind of how we've been doing it. I'm a little bit simplifying it, but that's kind of how it's been done. So instead of looking at all of these different and by population and by maybe our own social values, the service categories, we would look at these all as being the same. The little boy T-ball is a beginner level activity. The older adult was in a learn to swim class, and the little girl was in an intro to ballet. So service categories start to look at things as like purpose. Therefore, at the end of the day, they would have the same cost recovery goal. What Creighton and his team have done, and I know this is super tiny, I do think Liz might have been able to attach it to your packet tonight, but I will also talk through it more in just a couple of minutes. But these 12 service categories essentially represent all of the programs and services offered through American Canyon. These are unique to American Canyon. So the staff have put together the definitions, the staff worked diligently on all of the examples. They probably worked on this for, I think, about 6 weeks to really hone in on articulating what was right for American Canyon. So these are American Canyon service categories. The second leg of that stool is beneficiary of service. And beneficiary of service is simply who is benefiting and starting to identify your service categories, and you'll do the beneficiary of service exercise tonight by if there's a greater community benefit or if there's more an individualized benefit to nature. So here again, 2 activities. The service area would be aquatics. And in our new lens, right, we would be looking at these for like purpose. And the purpose is not exactly the same. The little boy is in a beginner level activity, a learn to swim. And then this young lady represents a competitive level. So she would be in a different service category. Again, down the road, those would equal different cost recovery or different subsidy goals. This is the beneficiary of service. Again, this is the second attachment. This is the exercise that we'll do together tonight. And I'll really just want to emphasize beneficiary of service is based on 2 factors. Is there more of a common good, meaning that it's a must-have, it's got a far-reaching impact for the community, and there's more of a universal value, or is it more individualized in nature? Those are kind of discretionary, nice to haves. Maybe there's constraints to participate, like skills that are necessary, and the individual benefits more than the community. Main reason why we start to break things down this way is to diminish all of the social value conversations and really start to focus on the values and the ranking of those values that American Canyon wants to have for its community in the future. So what you'll do once we have these beneficiary of service, you'll start to make your own continuum. And this will be a beneficiary of service continuum, as Creighton mentioned. The staff completed this last week, and so you'll complete yours tonight. And what we'll do is we'll line up your ranking of your categories from most common good towards the orange side of the arrow to most individualized in nature, which is the green side of the arrow. And finally, I just want to touch on cost of service, so that when you start to see that data down the road and we start to really talk about cost recovery goals, when we talk about cost of service, and when we're capturing information from the staff, we're actually capturing all of the costs. So this is the picture that we identify. At times, new drivers think that the cost of driving a car is just putting gas in the car. We would consider that a direct cost. We also capture with you all of the indirect costs. So again, driving the car, all of the other costs that are necessary might be new tires, getting license plates, right? Oil changes, insurance, things like that. So when we talk about cost of service, we will capture all of the indirect costs so that people can really see what the cost is of actually providing that service or the activity, and they intentionally are choosing that and picking that. What we do with that on this continuum is we place those cost recovery goals under the service categories, and we don't play, I mean, we'll put them there, but you will select them. So once we have all of the cost of service, once we have all of the data and we're sharing the results, we do what's called a reveal phase in this project. And we talk to Creighton and Jody and Alana and Liz and all of the staff about how they might want to set their goals going forward based on some of the current realities, maybe some of the political components, and maybe just some of the need in the community. I'm going to show you two different models, examples, just so you know what you're helping participate in making, because this is a really key part tonight. So this is River Trails in Illinois. A couple of things to note. They've called their cost recovery continuum a strategic approach to cost recovery. So that's always something that kind of sets the tone and the stage for how that organization plans to use this moving forward. As you can see on the green arrow, they've listed their service categories from common good to individualized good. And you may notice that their service categories are not your service categories. Again, it's just based on what they offer to the community and how they wanted to capture those. And then you can see simply cost recovery goals below that, and they are a range. We do recommend always having a range of a goal. I think it really helps frontline staff identify within that area, as well as starts to set a target that, you know, let's just say hypothetically that in this enterprise operation, some programs at 100 and some's at 125, 125% isn't actually making money. It helps to reinvest, right, in the areas that are really heavily subsidized, like community events for this example. This is another approach. This is Oregon City. I believe they just completed their model in February, and they call theirs a financial support and sustainability strategy. And why we wanted to point that out is we've seen a trend more recently going towards people being professionals, articulating where the subsidy will be spent and intentionally placing that so policymakers, anybody in the community can see that there's an intention towards subsidizing something. It's not just about recovering the cost. So here you can see that the first several items on their continuum have higher subsidy levels, open access. That's likely things like playgrounds. Maybe they have a basketball court where people can go play, things like that. The subsidy level that they're expecting is 95 to 100%. As you start to get along their continuum, you can see that for them, special events, their subsidy level will be between 0 and 30%, right? So it starts to flip that cost recovery idea upside down a little bit so they can articulate how they want to spend those taxpayer dollars. The top 3 or 4 items on their continuum actually has 0 subsidy. So those are goals that they have selected that's how they will need to operate or function for what's right for Oregon City. And again, this is American Canyons right now, because we're just getting started on it. So this will be you in about 30 days or so. All right, with that, I'm going to hit pause really quickly and see if there's any questions just before we start this beneficiary of service group exercise.
Great. Excellent. Thank you, Pharrell. So yes, we're just opening up the floor to questions. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Okay, so we don't have to raise our hands then? No?
No, just go ahead and ask the question.
Just checking.
Of course.
Director, is this the company that we're going to be, the subcommittee or the ad hoc committee is going to be working with for the cost recovery?
Yes, Commissioner Cervente, we have been working with them kind of off and on. Jody's been giving updates to the group that's been kind of working along this path, and we're nearly finished at this point.
Thank you.
Pharrell, I had a question. The subsidy continuum and the cost recovery continuum were really interesting. It seemed to me that they were mirror images of each other. Is that okay? So those continuums, is that going to be kind of the end result of this process for American Canyon?
Yeah, that'll be one of the 3 deliverables that you have. And I believe if I haven't sent them to you, Creighton, I will, but I'm happy to send you several examples so that, Creighton, as you or your team work through them, you could show your commission chair as well as the rest of them some of the nuances that become similar, because that will be the look, Chairman, but the information inside of it will definitely differ depending on the agency.
So thank you. That was actually my follow-up question. What's the difference between a subsidy continuum and a cost recovery continuum? Is it just kind of like keeping in mind who your audience is and that's what they're going to get, kind of?
I think so. I mean, I haven't had that level of conversation with your staff because I haven't seen all the cost data isn't in yet. It's not complete. But yes, I think that the agencies that have chosen to lead with the subsidy, I think their community, they felt some pressure in their community to say, hey, we're going to spend your taxpayer dollars in this manner, right? We know it's an awesome opportunity, and here's how we want to be spending those. The agencies that have chosen to do cost recovery, again, I think it's somewhat strategic and somewhat of a political environment. They're saying, hey, we have to recover costs in this area so that we can take care of X, Y, and Z. So some of them, I'll use this as an example, the one that we worked with today, they have high expectations for subsidizing like their ball field rentals to private for-profit groups. So they're leading that category from a cost recovery so they can go back and have a conversation about needing to adjust how operations are happening and how fees are met so that they can take care of those fields. And specifically they want to make adjustments for non-residents compared to residents. So they are leading with cost recovery specifically.
Okay. It seems to me that whichever one you use depends on your audience and what you're trying to sell and accomplish. It seems to me like one continuum might be more understandable by our city council versus another one.
Yes, and I will happily let you all work through that and work with you to create what's right for you. I mean, I'll also say, when we do this work with you, we hope it's not stagnant. So you'll have all this information in year one. And our hope is that you as a group, right, and as staff, depending on your responsibilities and roles, but you work through it and you make adjustments where necessary. The last step that we will actually do with Creighton and his team, we've created a step called Insights into Action. And so once all the information is gathered, we come back and share with their staff and say, now you have all this data at your fingertips. How might you start to work through adjustments, right, and moving your department forward? And so we come back and we'll talk through that, and we'll leave you with that handbook. You all may want to discuss some of those components as well.
Wonderful, and thank you, Pharrell. Further questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none. Actually, before we move on, I think this is good to acknowledge publicly that behind the scenes, our staff has worked tremendous hours to get that data to 110% so that you can analyze it. So that has been definitely been happening behind the scenes. Right?
They have
I'll-
probably even more than I know. Creighton, you speak to that.
Yeah, Chair, I was just going to say it has been painful, and it has mostly to do, nothing with 110% process, has everything to do with our rec management system and it not being all that easy to work with. So it has probably taken more time than it probably should have.
So, we're acknowledging that behind the scenes work publicly. So
Yeah, I want to say special acknowledgement goes to Jody and Liz. They've been the ones that have put in the real hard work. They've been grinding through all that data, Liz especially.
So good job, y'all. Okay. Okay, seeing no further questions, we will move on to the exercise trail.
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay.
Okay, so do you all have the two attachments that were included either on paper? Okay, either on paper or that you can see it. Okay, good.
There it is.
Thank you. All right, well then I will do another screen share, but you being able to see the information firsthand will be really important. So if you can't, you just need to let me know. Okay, so here are the 12 service categories. And as I mentioned, all of the programs, classes, events, activities live in one of these service categories. And we call this a working draft, in that at times after this meeting, something is brought up that we need to work through an example, but typically the definitions are about 98% ready to go. So in case something adjusts after this meeting, that's where that comes from. So I'm going to read to these service categories to really get you thinking about what they offer to the community from that mindset. So beginner and introductory level activities include classes, clinics, and workshops, and other led or supervised activities where the primary intent is to learn a skill. And then you can see those examples. Junior warrior basketball, youth basketball, kids love soccer. Community events are mission-focused events that appeal to a majority of the community regardless of age, ability, skill, or family composition. These events are highly labor-intensive and occur on an annual basis. Some aspects of these events might require pre-registration. Examples may include 4th of July, Veterans Day, and Snow Day tree lighting. Drop-in or monitored access. These activities may or may not require registration, are non-instructed, but include general staff, volunteer supervision, or oversight. Participants are primarily independent and self-direct their activity. And then examples include public swim, unstructured activities in the senior lobby, and social time and open gym. Education and enrichment. Activities include classes, clinics, workshops, and other led or supervised activities that provide socialization, life skill development, focusing on education and lifelong learning. Pre-registration is typically required, and examples may include Canyon Kids Summer Camp, Take Charge Teens, NCBC bike rides, Japanese tea garden trip, youth zoo trip. Environmental conservation and stewardship. Programs promote the natural environment and its responsible use and protection, and the value and enhancement of outdoor recreation resources or assets. Examples include River to Ridge Conservation Program, NOS Trail Crew Program, and Eagle Scout projects and programs. Human service. Focus on preventing and remediating life challenges and maintaining or enhancing the quality of life, independence, and connection to the community by linking or providing resources for those in need. These services may be provided in response to climate emergencies as well. Examples include food distribution and deliveries, disaster aid and referrals, and emergency shelters. Intermediate or advanced level activities include classes, clinics, workshops, and other led and or supervised activities where the primary intent is to enhance or master a skill. Examples include intermediate or advanced fitness classes, SEALs, Sharks and Orcas, and Summer Competitive Basketball League. Merchandise, food and beverage sales include consumable and non-consumable goods for purchase at various facilities. Examples include swim diapers and concession items. Open access to parks, park amenities, trails, and open space where staff or volunteers may facilitate and encourage use, but oversight is not provided. Activity is self-directed by the user participant. Examples include trails, parks, playgrounds, drop-in use of a picnic shelter, skate park, and plazas. Private or semi-private level activities include individualized services designed to serve an individual or small target audience with unique needs, interests, or skill sets. Instructor to participant ratios generally does not exceed 1:3. This includes private swim lessons and private guided tours. Rentals include the exclusive use of a park, park amenity, or recreation facility by an individual or group. Examples include sport field rentals, gym rentals, senior center rental, and community garden plots. And special events. These are designed to target a specific interest or market niche. They may occur annually or with some regularity. The event or pieces of the event may require pre-registration. Examples include I Spy, senior center tree lighting, egg hunt, casino trips, Kidical Math. Okay, so those are the 12 service categories that you are going to be ranking tonight. The order that they're in right now is simply alphabetical. So just so we're clear, there's no rhyme or reason to it except for alphabetical. And here's what you're going to be doing from beneficiary of standpoint. The beneficiary of service, a financial resource allocation philosophy. It provides a foundation for differentiating services based on who benefits, therefore who should pay. Economists have been differentiating goods and services in this manner for decades. So it's not a 110% philosophy. Determining the beneficiary of service becomes a primary driver in how public parks and recreation organizations can begin to make informed, defensible, taxpayer investment decisions. Following the concept of the organization's service categories, they each have a set specific characteristics. They provide rationale for who should pay, the taxpayer, the individual, or both, and to what degree. This starts to help organizations align and choose to spend those finite taxpayer dollars in the manner that they want to based on the beneficiary of service. So again, the two definitions, and then I will let you start your project. Common good. These are services accessible and of benefit to all in the community. They have a universal value. They are essentially contribute to the common good, and they can be characterized as must-haves. They have a far wide-reaching interest level. Individualized are services provided for more of an exclusive benefit or benefit to the individual. There may be constraints to barriers to access. Essentially, these services benefit the individual more than the community as a whole and can be described as discretionary or nice to have with less of a community-wide impact. So here's what you'll be doing. You'll be ranking the 12 service categories based on those two factors, the beneficiary of service. So for the category that you think has the most common good, you would put that in the 1 space or put a 1 by that. And for the category that you think has the most individualized good, you would put that number 12. So you can choose to either do, like some people do, bookends and then work their way in. Other people take a few minutes to read all of them. You'll use each number only once, so 1 through 12, and basically you'll rank them just on those two components. One thing I do want to caution you of is I've been very deliberate not to say anything about dollars and cents or what you think something should cost or the fee. If that thought enters your mind, just put it to the side. That's just not this exercise tonight. This is really just based on your community, your values for the common good or individualized good. What I'm going to do, and if you're not sure of some of the terms, we put that second page on there in case it's helpful. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn my camera and my volume off and give you all right about 10 minutes to just digest, again, these categories and go ahead and rank them. So I have that it is 7:25. So I will see you back here at 7:35. And then I am going to actually capture everybody's answers for each of the 12 categories. Okay. I hope everybody has had time to complete. We find the sweet spot for staff is 8 minutes and the sweet spot for commissioners is usually about 10, so they can really read through the information and absorb it. So here's what's going to happen next. I'm going to stop screen sharing. And basically what you're going to do is you are going to, this is very professional, no, this is very high level, very technical. You're going to show me using your fans where you placed each service category. So I'm going to read one of the service categories. I'll read them in the same order, the alphabetical order. Sorry, let me stop this really quick. And I will read it and you will put like up a 1 or a 5, 10, like 12, right? That's the only one that's a little weird, 11 and 12. And I'm going to capture those. I will write them all down. And just so you know, I'll just be doing a simple math exercise of creating an average with all of your information compiled. I'll create a beneficiary of service model based on this commission. I've also created one based on the staff. And then I'll be sending those to Creighton for there to be some comparisons. And I'll just say, because sometimes people are a little nervous, it is incredible how similar typically commission beneficiary of service models are with staff, because I really think that at the end of the day, everybody's aligned in a really similar purpose. So, okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and read from the top down. And again, you're going to show me with your hands where you place that. Okay, so beginner, introductory level. And if you can just leave them up for just a second so that I can capture them, that would be great. Thank you. Karina, okay, good, thank you so much. Community events. Thank you. Drop-in monitored access. Thank you. Education and enrichment. Thank you. Environmental conservation and stewardship. Thank you. Human services. Thank you. Intermediate advanced level activities. Thank you. Merchandise, food, and beverage sales. Okay. Perfect. I got you. You did great. Actually, good hand motions. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Okay, open access. Thank you. Private, semi-private level activities. Thank you. Rentals. Okay. And special events. Okay, thank you so much. Good job. So again, hopefully that was the most fun you've had in a commission meeting. Well, no, teasing. Again, thank you for participating. Thank you for paying attention and your interest in this project. I know Creighton has mentioned several of the commissioners have been very interested all the way through. We appreciate that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Creighton for his team, his work. I know there's a lot of other things going on in your department. in addition to this project. And thanks for just teaching us and working through what's right for American Canyon. The next two steps will happen. Again, we'll synthesize these two beneficiary of service work sessions. Creighton, I should have you these by tomorrow. And then we will work with Creighton and his staff to start to identify where all the costs are, creating a beneficiary of service model, and completing this project in about 30 days.
Thank you very much, Farrell. Very much appreciate it, and look forward to wrapping this up and getting the final product over to this group for your review and consideration.
Great. Thank you. Farrell, I guess before you log off, I'll just open up the floor just for last minute questions from the commission, if anybody has any. Great. Okay. So seeing none, we'll move on. But thank you very much. That was really that was an excellent exercise and good presentation. So thank you very much.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Mm-hmm.
Have a great evening.
You too. Thank you. All right. So great. We are moving on to business item B2. Receive and file a report on the volunteer program, the conservation program specifically, and discuss the Parks and Community Service Commission's role in supporting it. So Director Wright, or I think it's Director Wright and Shalon.
Yeah, Chair, I will start, and we'll end up bringing Shalon in to add a little bit of color into the conversation. Let's see here, 1 second. So you should see my staff report, I hope, right?
Yep, I see it.
Okay. All right, so we are here today to talk about our volunteer conservation program. It is one of several great accomplishments that Shalon has brought to our community. Our open space group had a goal for several years to create a stewardship program, specifically around the Newell open space. But as we started growing the volunteer program, we found that there was a kind of a relational, a similar type program that we could put in place in our kind of more traditional recreation spaces. So we've created these two programs. One of them is called the Trail Crew, which is based primarily at Newell and the wetlands, and the Volunteer Conservation Program, which is kind of everything else. So that would be the opportunities for volunteers at more traditional areas. It could include putting mulch out in planter beds, or planting trees in parks, or doing park cleanups, or that kind of those. Those are some of the examples. So we are running into a bit of a challenge. These two programs just formally launched in March, although we've been offering kind of programs that would fit underneath them for a while. We formally put the program together and started it rolling in March. And then Shalon has been met with a fantastic opportunity to move on to another organization. And so we're looking for some help to keep this program going. And again, we split it into two. Trails Crew, we made this similar presentation to Open Space last week, and we're asking them to volunteer and participate in the coordination of that program. So we're coming to PCS here tonight to ask for your interest and willingness, and potentially helping us to coordinate the volunteer conservation program. There are three main components to the program. And the first component is the database management, which our communications team is going to continue to run and operate. The second main responsibility in the program really can almost be broken into two components. The first one is pre-planning and organization of the activity. So that involves identifying first a list of all the potential opportunities and kind of prioritizing those, and then identifying the project that you're going to actually work on. And then going out and kind of determining what is that level of work, what kind of materials and supplies and equipment that you might need, coordinating with other groups or other organizations to help put that on, kind of all that front end work that leads you up into the day of. And then the other piece in that kind of second phase is volunteer recruitment and coordination. So that involves using our service system, kind of defining what that project is, putting it into service, putting out the call for volunteers. And then once they start coming in, ensuring that the volunteers are doing the necessary items, completing the necessary items on the service platform, primarily making sure that they sign their waiver. Their volunteer waiver is the most important piece that we look for. And then the last part of that, of our volunteer projects, are the day of facilitation of the actual event and activity. So that involves arriving early to the event, making sure that the materials and supplies are ready, being prepared with a training of the volunteers on what the activity is, and also some safety protocols, leading in the volunteer project, and then having some little bit of downtime at the end and sharing food or snacks, and then kind of clean up, wrap up, and then doing a report. So that is me giving a really quick overview of the volunteer program. Again, the communications team is offered to take on the first phase of the project, and we're looking for help on the second and third phases. And I think I'm going to pause there for a second and let Shilan go into a little bit more detail on each of these, so you have a good sense of what the expectation is and what kind of work is necessary.
Perfect. Thank you, Creighton, for framing up the volunteer program. As he mentioned earlier, we do have these 3 categories of how this volunteer program has been managed and overseen. So essentially, task 1 or phase 1, component 1, is really going to be managed internally through our communications department and through our Parks and Recreation department. So we're really looking for support on the 2 categories, including the event and project planning and the facilitation of each project. So I'm going to go into a little bit more depth on just explaining what that really means and how much of a commitment or how much time these things really take. And that will be just so that you guys are able to really understand sort of the ask that we have, and be able to answer any questions you guys have regarding any of the kind of steps we go through for planning these projects and then overseeing the actual day of the project. So we'll start with component 2, which is the event planning and organizing for each volunteer project. So since this is the conservation program, these projects are typically a little bit bigger. We have done them with partnership organizations. So generally, I would say the planning and coordination of these projects take anywhere from 15 to 20 hours to plan the whole thing. And that's just for one person. So if it's split among other people, less time and work for everyone. So when we're planning our project from the beginning, you know, we have this project list that I've developed over the years that include the type of projects we want to do and the locations at which we would like to conduct these projects. It also includes kind of the time of year and seasons of which these projects are best conducted. So we have things like weather that are limiting the type of work that we can have volunteers work on. So that includes in the fall and winter, which is colder temperatures, softer and wetter soils. We do things like trail repair, tree plantings, landscaping, park and creek cleanup. So these are things that the conservation program would also work on. And then in the spring and summertime, we have, warmer weather, harder, drier soil. So we'll do things like weeding, sheet mulching, bird box installation, signage installation, fence repair, and pothole repair. So this is sort of the first step of preliminary project planning. I typically begin this process about 1 month before the project. So that way I have plenty of time to scope out the project, taking a look at the list that I just mentioned and the type of projects you would do in that specific season. So scoping out the project, that typically I look at the list, I see what I can do during those months, and then I like to do a site walkthrough, go to the location, see, what's the most immediate need, and then pick a project and select that. So then now I have the project scope identified. After that, it depends if this is going to be a specific only city-led project, or if we're going to go with a partner organization, whether that's ACCPF, Solano Land Trust, Resource Conservation District. They've all been wonderful partners for the city in the past. So we have a list of all of our partnerships that we've done in the past and that we refer to when wanting to do a project. This is typically kind of happens organically if we have similar goals, which all these organizations do. So if we want to do a tree planting, we'll reach out to Resource Conservation District. They have an initiative that's re-oaking the Napa Valley. So you take into account these type of partnerships, and that can really help expand the project so that you have more resources, you have more hands on deck, and you also have more leaders supervising the actual project. So we always love collaborating with our partners and being able to expand on those projects. So establishing the project, that includes delegating the roles and responsibilities. So typically when we have a partnership project, we develop the scope together, make sure that the scope fits both the needs of organizations and aligns well with their mission statements. We develop and purchase materials within a list for the project. So that's typically split between the city and the partners, depending on any type of financial limitation. So if we're doing a landscaping project, we like to see where we can have the material list divvied up and delegated so that we can afford to have a project like something related to landscaping or tree planting or anything of that nature. The outreach, which is going to be a component that's managed by service. This is also within when you're delegating the roles, that's going to be city led. So our partners wouldn't be doing that part. Waiver, liability, and risk management. That's something, again, city does joint waivers. So we would have, we have a joint waiver already developed, and we get those waivers approved and created so that we can list those in our service account. And then project oversight. So the project oversight will be split, delegated roles between the city and partner. So that's after you develop a partnership and decide to work with another agency, that's the delegation phase. And after that, you develop project list and the budget. We typically like to conduct a project under $500 is our best estimate working budget. That's if I can get it under $500, I know that that's going to be a project and good for the city. Landscaping typically goes a little bit above that just because the actual cost of plants can be a little bit higher, but that's just something to expect when planning landscaping projects. After you develop a project list and budget, you go ahead and purchase the materials. So I typically conduct an inventory check in-house and make sure what we need. If we already have it, that's even better. We can save more money on each budget. And if I'm missing some tools, if I don't have enough for the project scale, if we're doing a bigger project, then I go out and purchase new materials. But I also try to make sure that our partnership agency may have some, so then we can save costs on that as well. And they can contribute their equipment and tools and resources at the same time. So after we do that, we make sure all those materials are prepared and ready to go for the project. Another step towards the end of this list of planning is the development of the waiver forms. Those are already done in-house, so I just have that listed here as a checklist item. And then outreach, so posting the project on service, of which will be conducted in-house with the city. So we have that. That's sort of our project planning that I start about 1 month prior to the project. The week leading up to the project, which is still included in our general volunteer coordination, is just going through that checklist one more time, making sure that we contact and follow up with our registered volunteers via service. We have a template for emails that would be referred to send out a reminder email, making sure everyone has their waiver forms, conducting a little quick check-in with the project partnership agency. So making sure that all the logistics are communicated and everyone's on the same page about, who's doing what for the day of the project and that sort of thing, and the materials and all that. Having all the forms ready to go. So that's a sign-in sheet, having a list of the registered volunteers, making sure that you print out the waivers as well. We want to have the emergency contact forms for everybody that's included in the waivers. So having all that ready to go and prepped. That's pretty much what we do prior to the project, the week leading up. And then also having our safety discussions ready to go as well. We have a list of about 8 topics that are discussions that need to be had prior to starting the work on the day of the project. So getting those ready, we have all of that written up and documented, and you just have to have that printed out so you can refer to them and talk about them. Preparing the work demo. So that's how you would conduct the work the day of the project. What is, how would you use the equipment safely? What does the actual work entail? So explaining that you'll be digging a hole, putting in an acorn, covering it, planting it. And so kind of going through the actual nature of the work. Coordinating pickups for lunch and refreshments. That's also something that you would work with to plan with either a city staff or the partnership agency. And then preparing the city vehicle with all the tools that are needed for the project. So that's when you have done your project equipment list run through and make sure you have all the equipment you need. If you don't, purchase it, have it donated, and then have it all packed up into the car ready to go the day before. So that's component number 2 in a nutshell, explaining kind of the routine that I go through every time I plan something, and that this is sort of what would entail within the coordination aspect. That takes about 20 hours, I would say, 15 to 20 hours for one person to do. And then component number 3, which is the actual facilitation of the project, is the volunteer oversight project day. These are sort of the checklist items that typically goes into the project, which takes about anywhere from 3 to 5 hours. Our trail crew projects are 2 hours long. Our conservation projects are typically 3 to 4 at times. We've had projects that were all day. So it really just depends on the nature and scale of the project that we're doing. So when you arrive to the project on the project day, you start off with site preparation. So that's setting up your sign-in table or your sign-in clipboard. For trail crew projects, I do sign-in clipboards because the project typically is going somewhere else to a project site. So I'm not really setting up tables, but for the conservation program, you're pretty much meeting where the project site is going to be, whether it's a landscaping project, a creek cleanup, a bird box installation project. So you would most likely have a sign-in table and all the equipment set up. So if you need shovels for digging to plant things, you're going to have all the shovels ready to go, all the plants already set up on the project site for the landscaping, all of it set up. So that takes about anywhere from an hour to 30 minutes before the project starts. So I like to get to the project site about an hour early to do the setup and be the first one there. Then you have a greeting introduction. And so that's sort of just welcoming the volunteers, introducing yourself and the partnership organization, talking about the mission statements that you guys both have, and then conducting a discussion just about the background and location of the project. So if we're doing a planting project at Newell Open Space, I like to discuss that we had a big fire in 2019, and this is an initiative to re-oak our area and bring, the natural landscape back to its initial form prior to the fire. So giving a discussion about, the reason this project is so important, and the actual efforts and what they mean and the science behind it and the education component is sort of what I conduct in that introduction, so that they have a better idea of why they're doing something, and they can go home and feel that they've made a really big impact on that specific project. So including education is very important when you first meet with your volunteers. Then you go through safety discussion. So that includes all the outdoor hazard training that I was mentioning earlier. That's heat, stress awareness, slips and falls, bites from snake, dog, insects, hand tool, body positioning, protective clothing, poisonous plant awareness, and COVID awareness. So making sure everyone's still wearing their masks and everything like that. So you go through the safety discussion, and that's required by our risk management group. So after that, you go over the scope of work, talk about the work demo, show them how to do the project, and then you begin the project. So this is the part that supervising is great when you have a 10-to-1 ratio. So if you have 10 volunteers, one person's enough to supervise. Now, these projects are going to be bigger, so having multiple people to supervise is most ideal and will help alleviate any type of stress that you may experience while supervising a group of volunteers all working at the same time. So supervising, making sure you're maintaining full visual on all volunteers and ensuring that they're handling all the equipment and doing the work correctly. That includes delegating too. So sometimes some volunteers may feel a little uncomfortable with the type of work. So offering them a little bit more one-on-one assistance and breaking down how to actually do the work is something that I find myself doing throughout projects. Encouraging volunteers to take on specific tasks and then kind of like rotating them out so everyone does a different task throughout the day. And while this is all happening, photographing the volunteers is also super essential so that you can have great images to show about the project later and be able to provide to our communications department for outreach. And then after that, you end the project. So what I like to do is get a group photo, break for lunch, thank them for all their contributions and give them a little giveaway item. And then you just send them on their way. And it takes about 30 minutes or so to clean up the project. So that's putting all the tools back in the car, cleaning up anything, throwing away any waste, any lunches, So that's about all I would say for the actual facilitation. I know that was a lot of information. I just wanted to be really thorough with explaining kind of what it involves and what it entails when planning and supervising the actual project. That's about 5 hours. I would say an hour before and an hour after if you have a 3-hour project. And of course, when there are multiple people supervising, you have, things get done a little bit faster as well. And for bigger projects, work gets done faster than you think. Our volunteers are really efficient, and I've been pleasantly surprised in the past at how quickly they can plant trees or clean up an entire creek area. So that's about it, Creighton. I think if you guys have any questions about that, I'm happy to go into more detail about some of those items. And Creighton, please feel free to fill in anything if I left anything out.
Shilan, thank you. You didn't leave anything out, but I did. And that is for the next year's budget, we have 6 projects planned. We have money in the budget for 6 projects. We might end up needing to shift that around a little bit based on the group's interest, as well as any partners that might be interested in helping out as well. So the maximum will be 6. The intent was to host a project generally every other month.
Okay. And then I would also add probably the project closeout phase. I believe most of this would be done internally. Is that correct, Creighton? Filling out like time tracking forms and updating the database for service. That would be all done in-house. Be requiring anyone.
Yeah, we would need to figure out a mechanism for transitioning kind of day of data to the folks in-house that can then upload and input that information. So yes.
So what do you guys think?
Wow. Well, speaking from myself, Shilan, you've successfully, I think, scared. No, honestly, it's a reminder that ultimately you are irreplaceable. We'll try, but you know what? But we were, it was just definitely a joy and blessing to have you. So, well, perhaps more on that later. We'll open up the floor for specific questions about the sections 2 and 3 of the volunteer program. Does my fellow commissioners have any questions? And I can't see anybody in this view, so well, let me see if I can switch it.
Want me to unmute? Or did you want to stop sharing the screen?
Oh yeah, I can do that. I'm sorry.
Yes. I'm not going to need to. I won't call anyone. Just go ahead and ask your question, Commissioner Margalotti.
So first I want to say thank you, Sheilan. Clearly you have worked very hard at bringing a really well-developed program to the city that benefits the city. So thank you so much, and we'll definitely miss you. So you did answer a couple of my questions. So one, Director Wright, I have questions about the things in general, but what specifically are you asking of us? Can you define more when you say help? I don't know what word you used in the report. So what exactly are you envisioning? Would be my first question.
So I'm looking to see if there is a commissioner or 2 or 3 or 5 that are willing and able to take on either all of or parts of items 2 and 3. Now, I'm cheating a little bit because we did this presentation last week to Open Space, and they expressed some specific feedback and comments about the level of stuff that they're willing to take on. So it's not all of 2 or 3. So I assume that PCS will likely be in a similar position if you are able and willing to take it on. So it's just generally, I'm looking for a lead volunteer to lead parts of these 2 phases of volunteer project development.
Okay, and then my next question is, were there some projects that you named that there'd be 6? Are there some that are more specific? Are any fall more under something that Open Space is more interested in? Or is it all, not necessarily, it's all helping our community?
Yeah, so we've broken the volunteer program into 2 different pieces, the trail crew and the conservation program. So the items that the Open Space group are mostly interested in are the trails crew oriented stuff. There is a potential of some things where there'll be maybe some crossover. And I would say mostly around the wetlands area is the place where I see that it's not like a clear trail crew or conservation program. It might just be that we have one group organize and coordinate, and we put out the call for anyone that's interested in members from both come into it. So there are conservation program ideas that are pretty similar are like we do a volunteer program with the Earth Day that fits under this umbrella. We've hosted the Earth Day event at the wetlands, so it kind of fits within that. We have also done, or we identify our coastal cleanup we do in September as a conservation program item or activity. So it could be a cleanup. And those are a couple that we've done some mulching and some re-landscaping along some of our trail areas as well, in the south part of town.
So the conservation, so trails is totally separate. Conservation is the 6th project you're talking about. And I know that, Sheilan, you mentioned the different partnering when it is a project specifically, but putting on my ACCPF hat, I know there's been interest expressed in that organization wanting to help and being willing to help and having the manpower to help. So what would that potentially look like if that's a possibility? Are you wanting a commissioner and that type of a combination? Is there something you're envisioning there?
Yes, Sheilan orchestrated a conversation with Janelle, and she and I earlier this week, and we have started conversations around having the foundation support this program as well. And Janelle is interested in helping out. Her level of commitment in helping is a little less than what we have budgeted. It's more like quarterly, for a year as opposed to 6. But I do see it being a great opportunity to team, whether it's Janelle or one of her staff members with one of our commissioners, minimally to kind of lead through this process.
Yeah, so when,
I envision kind of like almost a committee, if you will, of
Yeah.
several people that'll be walking through different aspects of it.
right, because it does sound like a lot. And then I know there was different things that that were brought up, like purchasing of materials and city vehicles, and those are the types of things that, I mean, we wouldn't necessarily have access to because we're not employees, so that would be a little cumbersome, I would imagine, and I don't know how that would work either.
Yeah, so those are some of the items that Open Space brought up last week. Committee member Christian has specific experience in similar run volunteer programs in 3 different organizations. And he suggested that we follow a model similar to those other organizations, which includes the volunteers helping out with the planning and organization phase, kind of the first half of step 2. And then the city being mostly responsible for the volunteer recruitment and coordination piece. And then step 3 being a blend of the volunteers, in this case, ACCPF and a commissioner, and city staff. The city staff's role is more facilitating and being available to deal with or to address items and working with volunteers in the event, like say a volunteer gets injured or something like that, that there's a city staff member that's there that can walk through that process. But on the Open Space, the Trails crew side, you know, Barry specifically volunteered to lead the exercise and teaching the folks how to do the activity and that kind of stuff. So I think there's going to be a little bit of negotiation isn't the right word, but maybe discussion about where the roles and responsibilities of the individual member might fit in best.
Yeah, because it's definitely what you described is a lot, Sheilon, and I know we all, lots of other commitments and full-time jobs and that type of thing. So as many, if there are partners that are out there that are willing to help lead, that we can, you know, take a turn in participating in and sharing the wealth of it. So that the program doesn't die itself, of course, right? You don't want that to happen because it's just getting started. So thank you for answering my questions. Yeah, I'd say whatever help is out there, that's awesome. Would be great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So Vice Chair Einberger, go ahead and go first.
Oh, well, I'm certainly willing to be a part of the conservation piece, but I guess I don't want to be the lead. I mean, I will be part of a committee or 2 of us lead. I just don't want to be it. But I'm very willing to put in a time commitment.
My question is whether there are any really outstanding volunteers that, if they are looking to Parks and Recreation as a career, whether there might be rooms for some kind of internship program.
That's certainly an opportunity. Open Space suggested that as well. I think it's something we need to look more into. There is an option through AmeriCorps that we could have an AmeriCorps steward come out here. Unfortunately, they do cost some money, and I don't have quite enough in the budget to be able to pay for them all. So an intern is something to look into kind of, I think, a little bit more down the road. We're going to need a little bit of a stopgap between now and then if we're going to continue the program.
True. I know, yes, I know that's, but something to definitely look into. I know for myself, number 2 seems very daunting. Number 3, facilitating and helping coordinate on day of, that's very doable, especially if it's going to be, what, 6 events throughout the year. So I guess in that respect, I'm similar to Vice Chair Einberger, I'd throw my hat in to commit to that. Basically 3, but 2, yeah, not got no time. Not ashamed to say it.
And we appreciate that you're able and wanting to help out for the facilitation of that project. That's still wonderful for us. So
So I have some questions and comments. My first comment is, Shailan, oh my gosh. Like, wow, you have really been doing a lot. First of all, to get this program up and going, and then to continue to run and manage all of these projects is a lot. And I get the feeling that 15 to 20 hours is a low estimate maybe of the hours that you put in to each project, because all of your projects have been amazing, and I know have taken a lot of coordination and effort on the front end, which is I think why we're all feeling like 2 is like, yikes, it's a full-time job. That's what you're doing. And a lot of us already have full-time jobs. So I have a couple of ideas, I guess. The first idea would be similar to what Chair Mamerl was talking about, but instead of an internship, we have a lot of community members, I feel, that are really interested in helping and in volunteering. And would it be possible to open up a volunteer coordinator position with the city that is truly a volunteer? And they could do the, access to the city materials and vehicles, and coordinate with you, Director Wright, maybe have a small workspace where they could print stuff out, things of that nature. They could be like, sort of like the center point. And then, kind of piggybacking on what Barry was talking about, at the open space meeting, I would find all of number 2 very daunting and difficult to meet the expectation and the standard that Shailan has set forth, which is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But I would be very willing to say perhaps partner with another commissioner or an open space committee member on a single project. So there's a ton of us on both committees combined, along with 1 or 2 city staff members and perhaps a volunteer coordinator. If we partnered on one of the projects, that would give each of us just one project to kind of take the lead on with a partner, and then everybody else kind of help out. So to me, it would feel like, okay, my schedule is more open in August. So whatever we're doing in August, I'll take on that project and I'll partner with, so kind of like putting out a list and saying like, okay, sign up for one of the projects, and then you get a partner lead for that project, and then that's your project that you do for the year. So then it's like 15 to 20 hours for the year instead of per project on just one or 2 people.
that's a wonderful idea. Yeah, definitely.
Yep. The volunteer coordinator role is something we've thought about. Admittedly, we have, Shailan has created volunteer lead job descriptions that up till recently, we've had a bit of a struggle recruiting people into a couple of specific roles. So we can certainly try that. It'll be interesting to see what kind of a response we might get.
Maybe just tell them that they're going to get to drive the city truck and go shop at Home Depot. I mean, I think we probably have a lot of people that are like, yeah.
I love doing it, so I'm sure other people would.
But I'm certainly willing to help. I'm certainly willing to be a part of keeping the program going, because I think it's wonderful, and plant some acorns. I'm with you.
Question, when is the next project where we would need to have the volunteer work in place?
So, Chair, we have canceled our May and June projects for both groups with Shilan not being here. So the next earliest would be, and we don't generally have projects in July. So our next earliest would be August. But I will put a caveat on that. And if we are to work with the foundation is not available until October to start helping with volunteer projects. So August would likely be on our own if we choose to have one. Otherwise, our next likely opportunity would be October in partnership with the foundation.
So
So I guess in all of that, I'm saying there's not a real set schedule.
Okay, but something in August. So far, there are 3 commissioners who are willing to, help on that in some way, in varying degrees. My other feeling is that we're gonna learn by doing. Shalon, you have a great template, but yeah, we're gonna do we're gonna have to do those jobs plus the other, the other jobs that just come with the territory. Well,
and Chair, I might add, Shilan read off that very detailed list of what she does, and that's largely because she has a checklist that kind of guides you through each of those steps. So as much as you're right, you're going to learn by doing, there is also a pretty good guide that already exists.
That's great. I mean, that helps with the learning curve for sure.
Absolutely. We wanted to make sure that there's a smooth transition with explaining everything this role would entail, or this program as a whole would entail, so that you're not left wondering how to do something. It's all written down for you and for everyone in a sense. So.
Okay. Unless there are any more questions, perhaps we should talk about what the next step is.
So, Chair, I think the next step, from what I hear, I have some interest in helping out with projects. So I think I'm going to spend a little bit of time in the next week trying to organize what our next year of the conservation program will look like, mostly based on schedule. Kind of taking the suggestion from Commissioner Griggs and coming up with an annual schedule and seeing from commissioners available time and see if we might be able to slot folks in, and then continuing the conversation with the foundation on what role they'll fill. I do have some organizational things that I need to do, as it sounds as if I will need some staff to help support this. I need to change around one of our rec coordinators' duties to take on the coordination role between the committee and the foundation. So that'll take me a little bit of time. So I think next steps are at our June meeting, I'm going to come back and report back on kind of where we are status-wise. And I should by then probably have a schedule for you to be thinking about as far as months for projects, and see if there's interest amongst the group on signing up for some of them to help.
Okay, that sounds like very good direction. So, very good. Well, there's nothing further to discuss. I also, by the way, fellow commissioners, I want to be mindful of our time. It's 8:24 right now, and I suppose B3 might not take too long, and maybe a quick break after B3. Okay, so Thank you very much. Shalon, continued success on your career. Do you get to show up at CPRS meetings or at CPRS conventions in the future in your position?
I think so. I think I'll be able to go to conferences in the future and see everybody at least once or
Great.
yeah.
Well, gosh, thanks for that. That would be cool. Okay, so moving on to item B3, discuss the Joint Open Space Advisory Committee and Parks and Community Services walking meeting. Director Wright?
Yes. Okay, Chair, Commissioners, thank you. I'll provide a quick overview here of our walking meeting from April 7th. I realized that after our walking meeting, we didn't have an opportunity to really debrief on what we saw and what thoughts you had and so on. So I wanted to take a quick opportunity at tonight's meeting to provide you the opportunity to do that and to ask any questions or provide any thoughts about what you saw. I did write out on the staff report a bit of a summary as it relates to some of my takeaways. I'm not going to necessarily go through those. I'll let you kind of review them and think about them on your own. Really, I'm looking for feedback I'm looking for from you is if there's any specific highlights in my comments that you want to bring up and focus on, or if you feel like there's anything that was out there that isn't captured in my notes here. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it. It's really an opportunity for you guys to debrief and to share what feedback you had from that meeting.
Okay. Well, I think the staff report is very clear, and those of us that were on the walking tour, yes, I'm sure we have some comments, but I'll just open up the floor to comments and questions. So feel free to just pipe in.
Okay, I'll pipe in. Thank you, Chair. On the walking meeting, we did identify a few areas where the trails need to be improved because they could pose a tripping hazard and an access hazard. And it was also identified that the way in which those trails were originally developed is expensive. So I do agree that there needs to be some areas of trail improvement, but I would like to seriously evaluate what our options are and look at the cost of that, just because coming from a budgetary standpoint, we don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on this. I don't know if there's grants or anything that can be utilized or written, or donations that can be solicited, but I just think we need to be mindful of how much we put into it, but it is a safety thing. So I do think we need to attend to that primarily out there. And my only other takeaway is that as far as Clark Ranch project is concerned, I think that it warrants going back to the master plan and reforming the subcommittee and sort of updating what that looks like, who's out there now, the lease agreements, the length of time that the lease agreements have on them now, and what proposals are from groups that are out there, what the city's able to do, and just kind of bring everybody back together and formulate a master plan that is actually able to come into fruition sometime in the, next decade. I know I keep talking about decade, like I want things to happen in the next decade, but it's a goal. It's a real goal. And so that's it. Those are my takeaways. I loved the class 1 bike path, and agree with Barry. Would love to continue the class 1 bike path. It's just so much nicer and so much safer for bike travel than the small class 1 bike lane. So I'd like to see opportunity for that. And it also gets me thinking about all of our residential neighborhood streets and how some of them are quite wide. And then they also have a sidewalk, but they have no bike lane or bike path at all. And I have been, had to jump out of the way sometimes when walking my dog because a bike is coming up behind me on a walking path. But it's really the only place for the bikes to be as well. And there's really no set, lines or arrows or, bikes here, pedestrians here kind of thing. There's no bike lane on the street, specifically talking about the Vintage Ranch area. So I think that that's a good thing to evaluate citywide as well. So those are my takeaways, and I loved it. I loved the walking meeting. I loved the joint meeting. I would like to propose that we have joint meetings at least biannually, walking in person or Zoom. I think it's great to bring everybody together. That's all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Griggs. I completely agree with you. Any other commissioner takeaways or questions?
So I really enjoyed the walk. It was really an eye opener to see, and also to hear some of the comments that other committee members and commissioner members have. So it's good to hear what other people's opinions are. But one of the things that really kind of impacted me was the amazing and what's it called, bike, like it's not a pump thing, but it's the bike,
little bike skills area.
yeah. I was so amazed that the kids actually build that. And I've been a commissioner for what 6 years now, and I've been saying since I started the commission how this town doesn't have anything for those tweens and teens, and they just did it themselves, and they bypassed the adults, I feel. So it just shows that there's a need for things to do for that age. And it's just, gonna get worse because there's, this wave of teens coming up within the next year. There's a big amount of kids coming into that age in town. I know because, one of the places you see where the amount of kids are in a town is Little League, and we've seen the wave through the time that we've done Little League, and it's here within the next year, I think. So that's something that as a commission and as and the staff really need to take a look at, either make it an official skills area, and we can do all the safety and precautionary things that we need to do. I was just amazed at the skills of these kids and the drive to do something like this. That was pretty cool to see. That's it. Thank you. You're muted, Chair.
I am. Thank you. Floor is still open for further questions from the commissioners.
Well,
Okay.
Chair,
Yo, go ahead, Director Wright.
no, I'm sorry, you haven't commented yet.
Yeah, I'll leave mine to the end generally. So it sounds from the from our commissioner comments that there are some things in the report that could use more focus, perhaps agendizing, in particular Clark Ranch review, that bike skills area. I share some of the concerns about risk management, but also we should support the ingenuity of our teen residents and trail repair. So perhaps Director Wright, that's the next step. Like, make sure that those items are revisited at a future point.
Yes, I'll go through and address a couple of these points. As far as the areas where the trails need improved, we are fortunate that we do have a pretty active Boy Scout group in town, and we do have a current Eagle Scout that is going through our process right now that has selected or chosen to make probably the repairs on that trail that are most urgent will be accomplished here in the next 45 to 60 days through this Eagle Scout project. So that is one kind of creative way of addressing this concern. There is certainly a longer term capital replacement conversation that we'll need to get into at some point. But the urgent issues as it relates to the trail surfacing, I think will be addressed through this Eagle Scout project. As it relates to Clark Ranch, actually our city council agenda posted while we were in our meeting, and there is an item on our May 18th agenda in which this topic is being discussed. The staff report is actually recommending that through the general plan working group that the topic of Clark Ranch is evaluated, and should that group feel like a deeper dive is necessary, it might lead to having the Clark Ranch group come back to address it, or it might just be addressed as a part of that Parks and Rec working group. So that item is being addressed as well, and it will be a pretty short conversation on council. Will address the short-term issues, and then the longer-term reevaluation of the master plan will be discussed as a part of the working group that just started yesterday. And then the bike skills area is something that I will be reaching out to our risk management to review and determine what are appropriate risk management steps without having to, like, keeping the spirit. I think one of the open space members mentioned that they really like the vibe and the spirit of that area. So trying to figure out a way of doing all of that and keeping it safe at the same time.
And with regard to the bike skills, I think it's very important to just recognize that those kids out there are stakeholders, you know, whether they know it or not. Okay, very good. Director Wright, would you recommend us appearing at the council meeting on May 18th regarding the Clark Ranch issue, or?
Yes, Chair. I think it would be good for the commissioners, if you are available, if nothing else, to listen in on Facebook or YouTube, or you can even get onto the Zoom link and sit in the waiting room and listen to the conversation. There will be an opportunity to provide some public comment. Should you choose to do that, you will have that opportunity. So I think this is a great opportunity for you to be engaged in a council conversation that relates to something directly with for PCF.
Great. Thank you very, very much. It's okay. So before moving on to item C1, the department reports, the time is 8:39. Gosh, it would be good to wrap up our PCS meeting closer to 9 to 9:30. Director Wright, with regard to C1 through C6, is that possible? I'm wondering whether we should have a break or not, or whether we should just plow through this.
Chair, I have primed our staff to try and keep our updates to 5 minutes. So I think if we are able to do that, it sounds like we should be able to maybe even make 9 o'clock.
I'm inclined to not break and go through this. Unless there are any objections from my fellow commissioners. I mean, if you really need a break, that's okay too. So, okay, well, hearing no objections, let's move on to the department report C1. Receive a status update on recent PCS subcommittees and other related committees.
Chair, I'll be sharing that report. Our food group continues in American Canyon. We've not had any significant changes in the need in the community. The numbers remain the same from last month, generally speaking. We did have a little bit of dip in the early part of April, but it's come up. I guess that's kind of unfortunately, it's come up back to where our standard has been, so that's not really changed. Our community events committee met last on April 21st. We have a meeting coming up here in May, and our current CEC calendar is attached to your staff report if you're interested in the upcoming activities of community groups. Senior Planning Committee met on April 19th, and they got an update on our programming for the late spring into the summer, and they are working on a postcard to be sent out to engage seniors and kind of remind them that our senior center is still around, and we're having an informal survey that will go out as a part of that postcard and asking people to share their interest from a programming perspective. The philosophy subcommittee, as I mentioned earlier tonight, we're coming to the end. I should have Farrell's final beneficiary of services matrix by tomorrow. We need to assign costs to all of those categories that you saw, and then that goes into their data machine and then spits out our cost recovery or subsidy continuum. General plan working group restarted last night or last afternoon, evening. I thought it was a really good kind of restart meeting to reorient folks on where we're headed and where we're going with this project. And got some great feedback for us to build on future meetings. This group will be meeting on a monthly basis on the second Wednesday of the month, and we'll be taking off the month of July, and we expect that it will continue through the end of the year before we finish up. And finally, Education Lifelong Learning Group had a restart meeting in April, and I just saw as we were sitting in the meeting, a save the date was sent out for a May discussion with that group. Again, this is a reminder of this group. Some of the items that are discussed will likely kind of fall generally under the umbrella of PCS in this department. So that's why it's on here. So that's my subcommittee report.
Okay. Thank you, Director Wright. Floor is open for questions.
I have a question. For the General Plan Education and Lifelong Learning Advisory Committee, it says subcommittee members, none. Is that because you don't need any or because you don't have any? If you don't have any, do you need some?
We do not. We don't need, nor do we have. That is a pretty large group as it is. There's around 15 or 16 folks in it. we try for the general plan committees to not have any commissioners on them because it can create some conflict. So so we're kind of charting ahead at this point.
Okay, thank you. I see, these subcommittees and I see, lots of different members, and then this one looks like there's no one but you. So just want to make sure that it's not just you having to do all the work if you need help.
Yeah, fortunately on this one, I'm not the lead on it. Our community development director, Brent Cooper, is, so he gets all the work on that one, thankfully.
Actually, that Commissioner Griggs's question and comment is equally applicable to the Community Events Committee. No commissioner is needed for that committee?
Well, we don't formally have a commissioner, but we do informally have a commissioner that sits in. And Commissioner Einberger is a organizational rep who sits in on representing her organization. But if there was interest by another commissioner, we certainly could have someone else sit in and kind of listen if you'd like and participate. It's mostly hearing from organizations in the community, sharing their plans for upcoming activities.
Well, and that is important because there was a lot of event conflicts going on before the formation of that committee. Okay. Well,
Would it be beneficial to have a commissioner on that subcommittee that then could report out at our commissioner meetings about all the upcoming events? Is that beneficial?
Sure. We have Commissioner Einberger sits in there now, so yeah, she's more representing Soroptimist in that role. But if we have someone else, sure, absolutely, why not?
Okay. Well, I'm happy to take a spot on a subcommittee since I am not on any subcommittees and I don't, want to do my part here. So I'm happy to do that if you are in need of someone.
Well, Alana, will you put her on the meeting list? Thank you.
there we go. Cool. No motion needed. All right. Unless there are any further questions, we can move on to item C2, receive a report on the aquatics program.
Chair, I'm covering for Jody as he's out on vacation this week. And I'm just going to be real brief with he is getting ready for summer. I mean, that's bottom line where we're at. And that has to do with getting staff trained and ready to go for summer, bringing on some new staff, and then kind of settling in on our summer programming. So he's got his team all raring to go for summer.
Okay. And sorry, just to refresh my memory, when does the summer aquatics program begin?
So we are starting, we'll have a small taste of swim lessons the last 2 weeks in June, but we're going to get busy in earnest after the 4th of July. This year, the way school gets out this year, it breaks a little bit weird because usually we have another week of June before we move into 4th of July, but this time we only have 2 weeks. So it's just a little wonky from a programming perspective.
Okay. Very good. Any questions from the commissioners?
I don't have a question, but I have a note of appreciation that I would like you to pass on to Jody, please, and put on public record. The high school pool was having many struggles with their heater, and Jody stepped up and made the Philip West Aquatic Pool available for AHI use. So the kids didn't have to be out of the water for more than 2 practices. So thank you very much for that. Very much appreciated. We like to keep them swimming.
I will pass it along. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great comment and acknowledgement. Well, let's see. Seeing no further questions, we'll move on to item C3, receive a report on upcoming recreation offerings.
And Chair will have our Recreation Supervisor, Alana Ben, take that one.
Thank you. Okay, so our COVID kind of return to play coordination just ongoing there. We have also our in-person programming that we are continuing with, tennis, our all city dance classes, and our evolution line dancing as well. It's just continuing on. And then our senior virtual programming also just moving on forward, continuing our Forever Young Fitness, our yoga, and our Stitchers. And then Seroptimus continues to offer the bingo and the music nights, which is great. Sports that are upcoming, we have open gym badminton that is coming back and starting in June. So I know a lot of people are excited about that. And then we are offering a lot of sports kind of clinics with our National Academy of Athletics. We have the 3-on-3 Hoop It Up basketball, all sorts of sports, bump spike, volleyball camp, and then a junior all sorts of sports clinic as well. We also, which I missed for this report, we have a martial arts that will be starting in July. And then moving on, there was a pickleball request that came up at the last PCS meeting. Staff has been working with the Napa Valley Pickleball Group to see if we can get an instructor and kind of what they're about and how we can really bring pickleball to American Canyon. They are a volunteer organization, and they are actually going to be looking at providing us with some beginner one-day clinics to introduce the sport. So we are working on what that could look like moving forward. And then I think the big one that everyone wants to know about is 4th of July. We are still developing and going through our 4th of July plan. There's a lot of hurdles that we have to come across, as I mentioned the last time we met. As of right now, we are looking at, or I guess, yeah, we're working on the fireworks. That's more of a solid plan than the rest of our celebration. Right now, that's still up in the air. So that's kind of my update with 4th of July. Summer camp, we were looking at our Canyon Kids Adventure Camp, but with the school district offering a very similar summer enrichment program, as well as summer school, it just didn't make sense for us to try to compete. So we will not be offering a summer camp this year, as both you have the school district and then you have the Boys and Girls Club both offering camps this summer. And then there was another request from Commissioner Savente about Dementia Capable. So we have a staff member that is taking part in Dementia Capable Napa County, which is a group that supports and talks about the different opportunities with people that are living with dementia to empower them and support them. And we are actually working on a Spanish Dementia Capable class that'll be coming up here pretty soon. So as soon as I get that flyer, I will release it out, as well as we're looking at potentially having a training for staff. And that is my report.
Wonderful, Alana. Thank you.
Yep.
The floor is open for questions from commissioners.
I have a question about 4th of July.
Sure.
I'm excited about the fireworks, but I'm also wondering and concerned considering neighboring cities are not having any type of event. If there's been discussion or concern about crowd control and it then not being, I don't even know what it would look like.
Yeah, so Napa has said that they are not doing fireworks. A little birdie told me that Vallejo is looking at having fireworks, I think through Six Flags. So we won't be completely alone in providing fireworks, but you are correct, kind of up county, we're looking at no fireworks that way. So that is one of the things that we were discussing along with drought as well. So we've kind of gone through the different checks with the different fire chiefs and police chiefs. And there is a plan right now. I'm sure Creighton can talk a little more about it, but there is a plan right now where we feel comfortable with offering fireworks. There is still some steps that we need to take to make sure that we are 100% good to go. But Creighton, you want to hop in there?
Nope, you did a really good job.
Okay.
That is about where we're at. We know that there are some hurdles we need to overcome, and we are still on the track trying to run over them as opposed to get tripped up by them. So was that a good way of not answering your question?
You're aware of the
We
Everyone
absolutely are.
regarding the matter and how to
Yep.
make it's not an issue.
Yep,
But I don't know
we
what it would be, but not whatever. That it's a because it will not be an issue. It will be a non-issue.
I will re-emphasize what Alana said, and that is that we have had 2 or 3 meetings with the chiefs and our city manager talking about this as a concern. So we will figure out a way to mitigate that if we were to move forward with an event.
Right.
I have.
Are there, yes, go ahead and ask a question.
Yeah, I echo what Commissioner Marcolati says. I feel like if no one else around us is gonna have the fireworks, it's gonna be a madhouse here in town. And I feel it's gonna be like twice of what that first snow day was. They couldn't even begin to crowd control that. So it's concerning for sure. The other thing I wanted to ask is about the Melvin tennis courts. How are they looking? And also I'm just really glad that the Dementia Capable from Calabria, you guys are working with them. I will actually request if we can have them come and present to PCS as well in the near future. That will be really good to hear from them and what they're trying to do here in town for the Latino community.
Commissioner Cement, did you just say Calabria or the Dementia Capable?
Well, they're part of Calabria.
Yeah.
Yeah, she wants the Dementia Capable workshop or overview provided.
Yeah, but also have the actual staff come and present to PCS, and so they can share what they're doing, what the vision is, and what they're trying to do. So the rest of the commissioners and public can learn about the great work they're trying to do for the Latino folks.
Got it.
And to address your question about Melvin tennis courts, I understand, I remember you reporting a concern with them needing to be cleaned up in February. I expressed that concern with our maintenance folks at I think my second March meeting with the maintenance team. They had mentioned that they had cleaned up the dead leaves and stuff that was in the corners. So the surfacing still has cracks in it, but the leaf litter that was there has been removed.
Thank you, Director.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Cervente. Other questions from the commissioners?
I have another question. I know that you talked about the different openings and things happening. Is the senior center going to be offering any in-person classes? Because I don't see that here.
Yeah, so right now we offer our line dancing. That is for our seniors that participate in that, but it's not physically at the senior center. We are currently working on a reopening plan for the senior center, but we're not actually looking at the senior center opening until fall. So probably doing some soft opening August, some classes, and then kind of actually opening in September. But we are working on that plan and developing what that looks like. But as of right now, there are no classes physically at the senior center.
I have a comment. Thank you, Alana, for your report and for all of these amazing events and classes and programming that are coming back that we've been missing. So it's wonderful. I'm very excited about the Calabria Care coming to American Canyon. They are wonderful. I think it's a really good choice not to have the kids adventure day camp because the school district is offering a lot of enrichment classes for free. They're partnering with a company that is usually very expensive. So hopefully many parents will take advantage of that. And then I just have a question. I'm wondering, is there any talk, could there be talk about bringing back family softball leagues to our community? If there is an interest in that, I would like to see that reinvigorated. It happened like in 2008 to 2011, I want to say. And then it just seemed to disappear, but it was a great family activity. You go to the Shenandoah, you see people playing softball, families are out there, kids are on the playground. It's a really community-centered activity. I'd love to see that come back. And as far as 4th of July goes, I think that the city should just make it a big surprise, not tell anyone. And on 4th of July, you either have fireworks or you don't, but nobody's gathering anywhere.
Thank you, Commissioner Griggs. Yeah, the softball league, I know that was here kind of before my time with the department, but it is not something that's currently on our radar. Kind of going through our surveys and needs assessment and readjustment. It's not on our radar, but I think that's something that we can definitely talk about and see if that's a possibility.
Yeah, Commissioner Griggs, you and I might schedule some time to go and talk through that. That program did, I hate to say it, but died right after I started here. And we offered it for about a year after I started, and we didn't get the interest to keep it going. The comments we were getting from the softball players in town is that they would rather go up to Kennedy and Napa because there is a larger league with more competition. And not only that, our facility isn't really ideal for softball because we have no outfield fence. And for those players that were really good, if you hit well, the ball ends up in Shenandoah or on Donaldson Way, and that's a bit of a problem.
Or in someone's backyard that lives.
Or potentially, yes. It's just not an ideal setup for competitive or even recreational softball beyond a pickup game.
Yeah, maybe something for the future. So yeah, just conversation for the future. You know, if we run into a whole bunch of money, we can build a giant ballpark facility. Amazing.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Griggs. I'll make my final questions and comments, but any others before me? Okay, so well, one, thanks for keeping pickleball on the radar. I'm eager to sign up for a clinic when that happens. And two, this is a more practical question regarding the 4th of July. I see in the report that the current plan is for the event to start at 7 p.m. with a short walking parade. Commissioner Wright, is it, and Alana, is it, I guess, would it be okay to share that info with community groups that might need to do some preliminary planning to enter the parade, or should we hold off on that?
Yeah, so right now our walking parade idea, it's going to have to be shorter from where our normal parade kicks off from Kimberly. It's actually going to be a very short parade. And because of that, we are going to be just doing what we're looking at is an essential workers and volunteers parade. So really recognizing the volunteer groups that have stepped up throughout the past year and businesses as well, and just focusing on a kind of short group of 20. But I think right now we just need to focus on if we are going to be offering a celebration at all. As soon as I get that answer, I think we should be putting some feelers out to the groups that we want to showcase and really thank as volunteers for this past year.
I got it. So I suppose, well, it sounds like the plan is going to be regarding the parade is it'll be an invite only type of thing, not an open invitation.
Correct. Yes. That is
I think that's quite prudent. So, okay. No more questions from me. Thank you very much for that excellent report. Moving on to item C4, receive a brief status update on park-related projects and the volunteer program.
Thank you. I'm a little sad. This is my last report for you guys today, so I'll try my best to enjoy this. So I'm going to share some snapshots for all of our American Canyon conservation projects that we had this past couple of months. So the first one that we had was our partnership project with ACCPF out at Wetlands Edge. We did a landscaping project on March 6th. We had 10 volunteers show up, total of 20 hours completed, and 57 new planted native species out along the area surrounding the exercise equipment out at Wetlands Edge. So this was a great project. We had a wonderful group of volunteers, and we loved working with ACCPF on this one. If you haven't had a chance to go look at it, I highly recommend taking a look and letting us know what you think. This was a really fun project, and the volunteers were really, really fast with completing the work. So it only took about 2 hours to get all these plants planted in the ground. So, and I appreciate all you guys coming out on the day of the project to come contribute and just see the project going on. We really appreciate when members of our commission and committees are able to attend. So this was the ACCPF project. Our second project we had shortly after that was our Newell RCD acorn planting project that took place on March 20th. We partnered up with the Napa County Resource Conservation District, and we were able to have 12 volunteers attend, total of 24 hours of volunteer hours, and 31 newly planted oak trees along the creekside segment of the Newell Open Space Trails. So we were really happy to have our partners with this. They were able to donate these cages. You kind of see down here where we planted our acorns and will soon in the future be oaks to reforest the area that was burned in the fire 2 years ago. On March 27th, we had another great project. This was our kickoff trail crew project, actually, the first one that we've launched. This was an artichoke thistle removal project. We had 10 volunteers attend, a total of 3 hours for the day, so 30 hours for the whole group. And we were able to remove 5 very large artichoke thistle regions in the upper loop trail up at Newell Open Space. You can see them collecting it with buckets and shears. And this was our lovely group of volunteers that were able to attend and help us out with removing a noxious weed that has taken over this area of Newell Open Space. We're hoping to see less of it every year. And so with ongoing volunteer efforts, we are most likely able to restore these California native grasslands that we have at Newell Open Space. And lastly, we have the second trail crew project we had last month on April 24th. We had 13 volunteers attend, total of 32.5 hours. And the outcome of it, you can see in this photo, was a poorly draining trail. You can see on the bottom left. And after we resurfaced it, regraded it, and poured DG, decomposed granite, over it, now we have a nice smooth path, a nice large section of the trail on the North Loop Trail near the picnic site. So this was our group of volunteers working, and this was our group photo at the end. This was a really successful project. We're learning more about how to use manual labor volunteers for resurfacing trails. So this was a great project, and I hope we have more of these in the future for Newell Open Space with the trail crew. So that's a general overview of our of our conservation program and trail crew projects that we've had over the last couple of months. And we appreciate the discussion having tonight with you guys about how we can keep those going. So really excited about that in the future. Prop 68 grant funding. So our short-term plan is with the allocation of $177,952. We would use that to fund the replacement of 3 playgrounds out at Northampton, Com1, and Little League. So that was approved by council on January 19th, and we have our application deadline to be received by December 2021. So we actually got, not we, but the grant was extended for the deadline. So now there's additional time to prepare that application so that we can have these parks renovated with this grant funding from the allocation we've received. Next, we have our Newell Trail Design Project. So as a refresher, it was a project that we received funding in 2016 by our California State Parks with the Habitat Conservation Fund program. This money will be used to fund the construction of a 0.6 mile long trail. It'll be 6 feet wide for ADA accessibility, and it'll be surfaced with quarry fines at the foot of Newell Open Space on the Creekside and Valley Trailhead. So we have actually just gotten our amendment contract approved on May 4th last week to proceed with the survey work. This was after city engineers had approved the design proposal that they updated for us. So we just had it approved by city council to start that survey work for the design phase. And once the design phase is complete, then we'll go and start construction and get a bid out for that as well. So we're really excited about the progress on this project. And lastly, our grazing management plan. So Creighton and I have been working with Jasmine from the Solano Land Trust to develop that joint grazing management plan for Lynch and Newell, since both are duly grazed by our grazing operators, Azevedos. We've been in frequent contact with them about getting a grazing license underway. So we're working on the development of that license. We've been meeting and speaking with various sheep and goat grazer operators to see if we're able to implement that into the lower stretches of Newell Open Space, depending on the grant funding that are available in the near future. On April 8th, we had artichoke thistle areas, about 4 acres, as well as the Valley Trail and Loop Trail, about 3.24 miles total. We were having them treated by some herbicides to control the non-native invasive noxious weeds out there, including mustard, and all of the different thistles, artichoke thistle, star thistle, purple star thistle, and milk thistle. So all of those have been treated so that we can help maintain and decrease our weed invasion out there at Newell Open Space. We had our trails closed for the day of application, and it was all the application of herbicides applied were wildlife friendly, cattle friendly. Everything was approved by the Forestry Service. So we made sure that it was compliant with our integrative pest management plan that we have to abide by with the city. We also received approval from Napa Land Trust to go ahead and install the 3 new pedestrian gates that you can see out at Newell Open Space, as well as moving forward with the Resource Conservations District initiative for a carbon farming plan out at Newell Open Space, and possibly including new sheep and goat grazing operations. And if you haven't already taken a look at Newell Open Space, we had 3 new pedestrian gates installed, as well as a vehicle gate out on the trails. And this will help us manage our trails better with maintaining closures on gates so that cattle do not access the lower areas where we want to protect our riparian ecosystems and red-legged frog habitat. So that was completed last week. I highly recommend going out and taking a look at them. They look great. Really excited to have that. We've been wanting to do that for a little while, so just finished that up. So that's everything. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer any regarding any of these updates.
Hey, thank you, Shalon. Yes, floor is open for questions.
Yeah, great projects. This is so exciting. I haven't been out to Newell in a while, so I really need to get out there, but certainly wetlands edge landscaping looks just great. I'm out there almost every day and it looks really beautiful. So nice job.
It was all of our volunteers. I won't take credit for their work, but thank you. I appreciate it.
I have a really important question. What are we going to do without you? At all of this stuff you're working on. It's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Whoever's getting you, they better know how lucky they are. If they don't treat you properly, we'll give you back. So thank you for all of this. Amazing. Wonderful. How are your trail cameras looking?
Thank you for asking. Those are actually, they're doing wonderful. We are going to be having Sean Hughes, one of our volunteers that has been helping me manage the camera servicing aspect. He's going to be taking over the project in my absence. So he will keep it going. I was looking through footage today, just as my last time looking through it. And we got some really wonderful footage of, we have a mother and baby deer, a fawn. So we haven't had any photos like that before. So we got one finally. And Bob returned to the barn camera, which was great. Hadn't seen him since the first data retrieval. So there was a photo of him. I don't know if it was the same bobcat, but just happy to see that there was one in our photos. So they're doing okay. All the cameras are doing great. And I know Sean, they're going to be in great hands with him. So we'll make sure that in the future, our department's able to keep on reporting on the newest sightings of our wildlife out there.
Very exciting. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that you have someone to take that over. I'm sure I'll be seeing some wildlife pics on Facebook. I can't wait.
All right. Great.
Once again, thank you, Shalon, for all you do. It's a really an eye opener of all the things that you do. And Director, did I read right when you sent us that report through an email about you're not going to be rehiring for this position?
Yes, that is correct. So that's partially why the item earlier tonight about trying to cover the volunteer program. And I'm also working with the Public Works Department to take on the project side of Siobhan's job. I'll still continue to be involved, but I need some day-to-day help from their team.
Right. So it's kind of concerning because I try to make sure that I understood it right. It is concerning because there's so many things that she does. But the other part that I'm really, really concerned is the grant part. I mean, I remember when her position came up to PCS, and when you asked us to talk to council to advocate for this position, and which we did, and we were really grateful that we got it, and now it's going to be gone. It's a little bit concerning, and I'm wondering how you're gonna take the one of the components, which is the grant part of her job. So that's my questions for you.
So the question about grants, how are you asking, how are we going to move it forward and continue writing grants? Is that what your question is?
Well, yeah, I mean, when her position came about, we were told that, a big chunk of it was for her to be writing grants, correct?
It was part of her job, yes. And Siobhan has been successful at getting us through her writing and our contractor grant writer, I think 3 grants in her time while she's been here, if I remember correctly.
Exactly. And that's why I'm thanking her. And I'm concerned that we're gonna be losing that, and then that position is not gonna be out for her rehiring. Am I making sense?
Yes, we are at this point in the next year at least not planning on writing any grants at this point. So without her role, and we're also not having our contracted grant research companies, we're not going to continue with them next year either as a cost saving measure. So it is a concern, you're right.
Well, we advocated and we wrote to council, we went to council meetings and we rallied to get this position. And are you like permanently not gonna rehire anyone? Like this is it? You're getting rid of that chunk and
No, so the position isn't being eliminated. It's just unfunded for next year. So at least through next year, we will not have anyone. We won't be hiring anyone in that role.
okay. Well, that's very sad. And I wish Shalane the best. And again, with this report, you can, see all the things that she did. So it's pretty sad that she's leaving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
I'm sorry.
Shalane, hey, it's a free market. So, hey, I think it's a good opportunity for you, and yeah, we wish you all the best, and hope we still see you around, California.
We will miss you very much, but
Oh yeah,
really, congratulations is in order. Don't
For
don't
sure.
let us make you feel bad for forwarding and furthering your career.
And I want to make
that's
sure
very
that
good
that's
thing.
not. I want to make sure that that's not what I meant. So
Oh,
to
no.
have it
for
clear.
sure.
No, I understood. And I really appreciate all the kind words you guys have all shared tonight. That's such a good heart. I know the work will continue. You guys won't even know I'm gone. It's fine. It'll all work out.
Okay, so here we are, almost the last item, C5, report by the director on various topics.
Yes, Chair, I have included my report in the staff report, so I'm just going to highlight a couple of items, and so I'll do that now. So first off, once we as a county moved into the orange tier, we softened up some of our practices. So a couple of things happened right at the end of April. I wanted to bring to your attention. The basketball hoops are all up in town, as well as the permanent restrooms at Shenandoah, Kimberly, and Com1 are open. Com1 only for reservation basis. It's really only one group that has a sports group that has access to it at this point. We are starting to take shelter reservations for the summer, and that will begin after June 15th with the idea that the state will be opening up. Right now, we can, under the current guidance, we can accept shelter rentals, but we're going to wait until it's a little bit looser and a little bit more clear. And then building rentals, we've not opened those at this point because indoor gatherings are discouraged through current guidance. So we'll see what happens June 15th. Let's see what else to bring to your attention. We did have a couple of follow-up items. We did recognize an Eagle Scout, Vanessa Chen, at council on May 4th. That was really great to have council appreciate her. That next item there, Maya Redhorse, who presented to this group in April, I believe. She also presented to council and accepted the Mental Health Matters Month proclamation with council. So that was really good to have Mentis involved or have some exposure to Mentis at council. And I think the last item I'll hit here, Chair, is a follow-up from a commissioner question from our last meeting having to do with getting a presentation from the Oat Hill development. I did talk this over with our community development director, Brent Cooper, and we're not quite at a point yet where it makes sense to have PCS have a presentation on it. Once we start talking with the developer about impact fees and staff comes to a recommendation as to what to do with those, then it might be appropriate if we end up considering some creative options for the development impact fees. That's where it would really make sense to have PCS weigh in on it. Not quite there yet. And I think I'll leave it at that for now tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Director Wright. The floor is
Wait.
once again open. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Chair. I have one last item.
Yes, of course.
We are unfortunately in fire season. I can't believe it. On May 1st, we were in proximity to the first red flag day of the year, which is very, very early for us. But our joint MOU with Solano Land Trust and Solano County Parks states that if they're in red flag and they close Lynch Canyon, that we will follow them and close Newell Open Space. So we did close over the last 2 weekends. Unfortunately, we had red flags on both of the weekends. So Newell Open Space was closed for both of them. So I think as a general, I don't know, reminder or heads up to the commission, when we do have red flag days that affect us or Lynch Canyon, we do close Newell Open Space as a safety precaution.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for that. Questions from the commissioners? Okay, and I have none. Seeing none, we'll move on to our last item, C6, items for future consideration. Any items?
I think I asked that in a previous item and Director Wright already took note. Thank you.
Great.
That was the dementia capable item you mentioned?
That's correct, Director. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Cervente. My only item for future consideration is that I have been talking with our honorary commissioner, Moon, about her projects. I'm not going to steal her thunder, but she has quite a few good ideas, and I'm trying to help guide her in developing those more so that they become presentable to the commission. And Director Wright, do we have a PCS meeting in July?
No, we have the month of July off.
Okay, so perhaps this item for future consideration, Honorary Commissioner Moon's projects can be agendized for our August meeting.
Sure thing.
All right, that'll prompt her to work on it. So, okay.
I have, I don't know if this is for future consideration or just a current concern. It's more for parks maintenance, but I have noticed recently lots of broken sprinkler heads in front of the middle school, around my neighborhood. I'm not sure if they're getting broken, if it's happening during maintenance, that they're getting damaged or what's happening. But it seems to be a really terrible waste of water, which we're just talking about already being in fire season. And then it's not, doing anything any good except for flooding. Then it has to be repaired. So I don't know how to better get a hold of that.
Yeah, I meet with the maintenance superintendent every other week, and it was an item that we specifically talked about at our last meeting. They're, in most cases, aware of most of the issues. But if you happen to see a sprinkler that is spraying out all over the place, you can always put in a C-clip fix request. If it's something that's actively going on and it is flooding out an area, you can call our parks on-call service. We have a maintenance staff member that is on call all the time just for these kinds of things, that we can have them come out and shut down the zone that's broken.
Director, I want to add to that, what Commissioner Griggs is saying. Actually, the maintenance folks at the middle school, or the district rather, we're fixing those heads today. But I think there, Director, if you want to be more accurate, the sprinklers are in front of the gym are done by Parks and Rec or Public Works. And then the ones that are in front of the track and the actual school are taken care of the district, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so yeah, so there's two different ones. So just, you know, when they are, I'm not sure if the district will see the click fix posts. So might want to be a little more specific, and then if you want to record them or let someone know.
Well, even if it's not an area that's ours, if it comes through C-Click Fix, they'll forward it on to the school district as a heads up.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if that was happening.
Very good. Okay. Any further items for future consideration? Okay, none. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn today's meeting?
I second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Okay, motion passes. We are adjourned at 9:31 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Hmm?